Audio testing, 1, 2, 3. Lights on, camera rolling, and action.
Welcome to the Scaling Creator Podcast, the one-stop shop that explores problems, solutions, and stories for business-minded creators. I'm Soren Dickens.
And I'm Eriksen Dickens.
We'll be talking about everything from self-discovery, storytelling, leadership, marketing, sales, operations, and finance.
If you like a healthy dose of education mixed with a generous dash of insightful entertainment, prepare for your ears to be pleasured. Oh yeah.
Make sure to check us out at scalingcreator.com and also join our free Discord community.
Scaling Creator launching in 3, 2, 1.
The following content is not intended for all listeners, but we strongly encourage all listeners to listen regardless. All right, welcome back to the Scaling Creator Podcast. I'm Soren Dickens, and I'm here with Eriksen Dickens and our guest, Cameron Sluggett. Today's a special episode because Cameron Sluggett has been a critical character in our life, and we look at the times we've spent with Cameron Sluggett and think about a lot of similarities and a lot of really good experiences that we've had when it comes to both of our entrepreneurial pursuits. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about where we met Cam, how we ended up becoming so close with Cam. We're going to be talking about Cam's journey and how we collectively created Dirty Toes and everything that has transpired since Dirty Toes back in 2018. I don't even know if that was the date, but we're just going to take a shot at it.
Sounds about right. No, it was 2018.
That long ago.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been that long. That's crazy.
It has been.
That's insane.
Yeah.
We're going to touch a little bit on Cam's journey when it comes to traveling outside of the place that he grew up. We're going to talk about where he is now and everything that he's doing with his new business, Veritas Fans. And if you take a look at the footage here, you can see that we're here in this production van and Cam actually outfitted this entire thing. So huge shout out to Veritas Fan for making that happen. And here we go.
So where did we first meet you, Cameron Sluggett? How did you come prancing into our lives?
Oh, I don't know. I think we both had different stories. I don't even remember, but I think during Dirty Toes, you said it was during baseball, like when we were little.
So I remember the exact date, and not the exact date, but I remember the exact how I met you, Cameron Sluggett. We had Mr. Tannis' class together, freshman year in high school, geometry class.
Okay.
And you sat right in front of me. I sat in the very back, in the back corner, naturally, in a math class. That's where you're going to find me. And Cameron Sluggett, you were right in front of me. And I remember this guy, Cameron. I didn't know him at all, but he kind of seemed like he was just a little bit of a class clown. He was loud. Everyone seemed to know him.
Me?
Yes, you. And you sat right in front of me. And one day, somehow, it was maybe a couple weeks in, we maybe talked a little bit, but you turned around and you said, I have a really sad question. Are you Mark Dickens' son? And I said, yeah. And you said, oh, my mom used to work with your dad. Because they worked together in Modesto, correct?
Yeah, they actually went
taught together.
Teaching school together.
That's right.
Yeah, the
right.
master's thing.
Yeah, so we had that kind of cool connection.
Yeah.
Obviously, for our listeners, if you caught episode 2, you know our dad passed away. He was a teacher, taught at Oakdale High. But that's how I met Cameron. And then from that day on, we just kind of hit it off. And we both had a similar sense of humor. And from that point on, it was history. We became best friends. And that's the end of the podcast.
Yep. Okay, thanks. That was fun.
No, yeah. Well, Cam, that's how we met. So how did you meet Cam?
So I always remember hearing Cameron's name, and when you grew up in a small town, you can relate to hearing someone's name and hearing the stories and hearing these, these tales about every adventure that this person may have gone on and what they're up to. And so I always knew of Cameron Sluggett, and I had never met him, but then I was going to school with his sister at the junior high school here in Oakdale. I remember going into freshman year. Yeah, I don't really remember how we met, but I'm pretty sure within 6 hours of meeting, you know what, we actually met at the Oakdale High School basketball game.
Okay.
My freshman year, and you and I left to go to Tractor Supply to buy hardware to build a zip line.
Sounds like us. Yeah.
So that's exactly how we met. We schemed something up with Shane Stelma in the bleachers at a high school basketball game.
The zip line we built back here.
Yeah.
That lost like a lot of elevation way too quickly. Didn't I hit the house or something?
I remember my mom just put up the deck.
And she was like, we don't care what you do, just don't hit the roof.
Just don't hit the roof.
And the first thing I nailed the roof and took off the roof tile.
Yep.
It was like,
I remember it dropped. It was, just to give listeners here some context, the tree was about 40 feet up and it was descending to about 20 feet over maybe 100 yards. So, or maybe a little less. And it was over a pool, cement, and 2 rooftops. And let's just say I remember the first time Cameron dropped out of that zip line. It was the last time anyone took the zip line.
Yeah, it's a miracle no one died off that thing.
or got hurt, really. Like, if you think about what we've done, we've never, knock on wood, like, been to the hospital, spraying anything.
Yeah.
All our body parts are still intact.
Yeah.
They are. But we got lucky on that one. But that was the first time that I met Cameron. It was a high school basketball game because I remember leaving, going to Tractor Supply. Pretty sure we just looked it up on our phones, what we needed to buy to build a zip line. Because Cameron had built zip lines before, but this was something, this was like a whole other level of zip line. That wasn't the last zip line we built, though.
No.
It wasn't.
We built a couple.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that Cameron and we hit it off very quickly. We both like building things, kind of tinkering, playing around with mechanical things, and I was always drawn to that with Cameron.
Yeah, liking how to visualize something and make it come to fruition, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of cool.
I guess we can talk about this now, but that's what's always kind of amazed me about you too, Cam, is you are so good at building things, fixing things, doing stuff with your hands. Tell us a little bit about growing up with, your disability, cerebral palsy, how that affects you, and how it's almost basically a miracle that you are able to do so much with your hands today. I mean, Veritas vans, you're building, you're creating. Tell us about growing up with cerebral palsy, how that affected your life as a kid.
Yeah, it's funny because I never really viewed it as I never was really I can't do this because of CP. It was always we'll figure out how to do it differently. Mm-hmm. And so my dad was a general contractor, and my brother, we kind of followed him to work and built fences and all kinds of stuff like that. And so we I just kind of grew up hands-on, but with the CP, like I said, it was never, I can't do this because of CP. It was more okay, how do I do this differently because I have CP? Okay, maybe I can't do X, Y, and Z, but I can do, it this way or whatever that is.
Adapting and finding another way to do it. I remember in high school, when the first time I met you, I noticed that you were always on a laptop.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize or understand why this guy is on a laptop. And then when I got to know you a little bit, it was because of that. You had a difficult time writing, and so you used a laptop, and that allowed you to learn tech and stuff at a very young age, correct?
Yeah, it was kind of cool because now it's every kid has a laptop, smartphone, everything, but growing up they put Wi-Fi in the schools for me, so that was kind of cool. And
did they really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I remember junior high, they had the whole summer to get the campus outfitted with Wi-Fi, so I could, go class to class and be connected. But yeah, it was just, so many different aspects, of growing up with a laptop. And I remember that, teachers used to tell me, oh, because you can work faster, your work should be better. And I remember thinking, my work can be the same, but I'll have more time to do things I actually want to do. Why are you holding me to the standard that my work has to be better? Because I type it, right? I actually have more time to play around because I can type my work faster. So
did you find yourself playing around a lot during the time?
I would definitely. I remember I would kind of give out the Wi-Fi password I wasn't supposed to, and it wasn't secure at all. It was OHS Wi-Fi 13 or something. But then when the network would slow down, I would go in and kick people off the network, and they'd be sitting there I just lost connection. What's going on? I don't know. I'm still connected, So I would definitely have a little bit of fun like that, for sure.
Yeah, that's really fun.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't know. Always kind of just like pushing the envelope a little, not enough to, get into trouble, but you always just need to be a little over the line.
A little on the edge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When you were younger and you started to, adopt the technology, the laptop, when you had to do things differently, did your parents explain to you what was going on, or what was that communication like between you as a young kid and your parents talking about CP or anything that you may have found yourself in a situation where you were doing things differently?
I think my parents did a phenomenal job of like making it fun. Like, when in first grade, I took a week off of school to go to diagnostic center in Fresno to get diagnosed. And I just remember it like being conveyed to me as fun. Like, oh, you're going to do writing tests and, meet with these people. And they never made me feel different or odd. It was just kind of the whole MO of like, oh, you're just going to do the work that other kids are doing, you're just gonna type it. Like, that's it. That's the only difference, really. And so, I grew up with a speech impediment as well, so my mom has always been a huge advocate for me because she's in education and she knew what needed to be done to get me where I needed to be, where like sometimes I think kids might just get, unintentionally brushed under the rug. So I was super lucky because my mom knew what to push for, who to push with, like getting me into speech as soon as I could talk and things like that, where like other parents and stuff, it's not that they're neglecting the kid, they just don't know. Like, oh, my kid's just talking later.
Yeah, or just put them into special ed.
Exactly. So
if your mom was sitting here, she would agree that our current education system doesn't really proactively take steps to help people who might need that extra help.
Yeah, I think it's there's so much going on now in standardization that the teachers have to hit so many benchmarks that if a kid's not hitting it, they don't necessarily have the time to dive in one-on-one with this kid because they're already behind with 29 other kids trying to get them to hit some standard. So I think that is a huge thing, and like I said, I was fortunate that my mom's in education and knew what to advocate for and who to advocate, but I think a lot of parents just don't know. They don't, like I said, if you take speech for instance, oh, my kid might just be talking later.
Or maybe he's shy, or they're justifying
shy
things.
Or he's an only child, so he doesn't get to talk to other kids. Like, lots of things like that, which maybe that kid doesn't have a speech impediment, but my mom knew what markers to look for and then followed those up. So
she did a great job.
Definitely.
On the topic of school, I always thought it was kind of ironic too, because your mom is an educator. How many years did she teach? She just retired, right?
Yeah, just 30.
Okay.
35, a lot.
Yeah. And you've gone through life with a very kind of different approach, I would say, right? You're more of a maverick. You view the education system different than most people and the societal norms.
Yeah.
At what point during your life, your upbringing, did you kind of adopt more of the outlier mindset that you don't necessarily need school or buy into the dogma that we're taught in the education system? At what point did that kind of start coming in to your being? And how was that kind of cultivated at a young age?
I'll tell you that Cameron convinced me to pretty much drop out of high school.
Cameron did drop out of high school.
And Cameron convinced Peter.
I finished on independent studies.
I finished on independent study. But sophomore year, I remember Cameron convinced me to go on independent study for 2 weeks, and we went up to Davis and went mountain biking.
Yeah, it's like you're achieving the same level of work, and you don't have to be there, right? Like, I would ditch and go work.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, you worked all throughout high school.
When I did that, I would email my teachers in the morning and be like, hey, I'm not going to be here. Just send me my work. So I was still achieving the same goals as the kids, right? Like,
sure.
And that's my whole thing. If there's a finish line, it doesn't matter how you get there, right?
Many
Hop,
ways to the top
skip,
of the mountain,
jump,
right?
run. I think, but back to your original question, I kind of started a landscaping company and got busy, and I was learning so much in that, and just like things like how to deal with people, how to deal with customer service, how to build spreadsheets, how to market, how to, all these little nuances.
What inspired you to do that? Did you have somebody in your life who kind of led you down that path? Was it just you saw something on TV, online? Did you hear something? Like, how did you go from being just a student at age, I think you were 15, 16 when you started the business?
I've always liked to tinker. Like, even today, earlier today, there was something on a table, and my mom said, oh, you would have just sat there and played with it for hours. And ever since I was little, I can always remember just always tinkering, and my mind's always going. So I think in high school, the easy thing to do is like get odd jobs and then turn those odd jobs into a small little business. So that's kind of the natural progression of like how I stumbled into landscaping. I remember my first account was like, I don't know, $60 a month or something. I remember thinking like, what am I gonna do with all that money? $60 a month, and I only have to mow her lawn 4 times a month, once a week. But yeah, so
yeah,
just
the epitome of like learn by doing. Like, you got your hands dirty, learn how it was done. I remember Soren as a young kid. What'd you do, Soren? You took the door off the hinges at like age 2, and put it back or something.
It's very mechanical as a youngster.
I remember me and Ian took apart an amp. And I was like, oh, maybe I can put it back together, and like better than they could. So I like
naturally,
put it back together, plugged it in, and it wasn't turning on. So I stuck my hand in there and shocked the shit out of myself. And was like, okay, so obviously there's a way that's designed, and I probably can't improve upon a bunch of engineers, but
I think it's worth noting too that not only did you start this landscaping business at such a young age, but you had people under you working for you pretty early on, like adults.
Remember Ronnie?
Right? Yeah, Ronnie the Russian, like
Roddy and Hector,
grown dudes.
Yeah, my brother. Yeah. I mean, I've always seen things. It's definitely a pro and a con that I see a lot of things black and white. So that is just kind of like, oh, I have a lot of work. I can't do it all. I need more bodies. Get more bodies. Do more work. Right. It's not... There's a lot of little nuances among that, but that's just, okay, get more and make it work, I never really thought anything on that. I never thought of as their boss, or it was just like, oh, we need to get this done. Let's do it, like...
I remember very clearly looking out our front window and seeing Cam and Ronnie and Jordan hucking the lawn clippings over the pasture. And they had their shirts with the palm tree, the lime green shirts. I'll never forget, dude.
Yeah.
And I remember Cam would he had the most swagger. Like, he would show up to high school in his huge Suburban, and
all the equipment's in the back.
He would during school, he would just roll up. He would just have a chick get into his car, and he would just leave.
And he wouldn't come back.
I remember
just like filthy. His shirt, his stuff, because he was working.
And he'd have a girl hop into his car and leave, and he would haul off, and you would see him again the next day, same thing.
Yeah.
People gravitated towards Cameron Sluggett. Everyone knew him, and you were homecoming king, twice? You were nominated, 3 years?
Yeah.
Almost every year you were in high school.
And even that's another thing. It's kind of like, if you're not seeking it out, good things will happen. Like, not saying don't work hard and don't pursue goals, but like, I see a lot of people like do everything they can to obtain this, but if you're taking small steps and almost forget about that to a little point where you're just like grinding, that will fall into place,
Absolutely.
And in high school, my brother and his friends totally stuck up for me, and I didn't really have to worry, and I think people just like me. Like, I never had to worry. I never really gave a
Yeah.
Like, if you like me, good. If not, there's more people in the world. Like, I don't really care.
For sure. No, yeah, you lived true to yourself, unapologetically authentic.
Yeah.
And that's really, well, I think that's why people, you were this, almost like this mystery. And even today when we were getting dinner.
Oh, yeah.
And
Cody.
Cody came up to us. It was like, where have you been? It's a mystery. And he's like, I don't care if you know where I'm at. Like, I'm just going to keep doing me. And I think there's something special to be said about that for sure.
Live life on his own terms. Like, don't really care what people think. I have this one very vivid memory of Cameron Sluggett. It was the year after high school. You and me went back on campus to visit some teachers. Remember this?
Yeah.
We were walking around, and the principal, Mr. Moore, he came up to us. He told us we need to get off of campus because we needed to get guest pass or something. I shook his hand. He looked at you. He's like, "What's going on, Sluggett?" And he went to shake your hand, and you were like, "Nope." Well, but here's the thing. Yeah, exactly. There's a story behind that. I'm not saying I agree with that. Whatever. But just the fact that you kind of stood your ground and like you didn't cave there. No.
Well, it's just like
you did your own thing.
There was a disrespect in the past and stuff. And it's like, I'm going to sleep just as well that night if I shake his hand or not. So, like, and I don't really care if I didn't shake his hand and he's like, well, that's disrespectful. You don't really affect my, which I guess could be taken as, like, inconsiderate. But, I mean, you can't.
Where do you think that came from?
That mindset?
Yeah, just the mindset that you've carried throughout life.
I think part of it is just like being made fun of growing up for my speech and sometimes my laptop, and my brother sticking up for me, and then just learning like, okay, they're making fun of me, but
like adopting that thick skin.
Who cares? Like, why do I care? Like, I don't. It's good and bad for sure. It definitely like gets me into trouble sometimes, but
I don't know. That makes a lot of sense. It's like in every story, there's always kind of the things that shaped us into who we become. Right?
Yeah.
There's the obstacles that we go through, the adversity. And I think that because of the stuff that you went through as a kid, like experiencing some of that bullying because of some of your differences, that shaped your characteristics, the way you react to things. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in a lot of ways it almost propelled you forward.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, and I remember, kind of another, I would say, like gasoline on the fire moment. I was dating a girl and she broke up with me and it devastated me. And I just like, okay, I'm going to keep my head down and work. And I don't know, that's definitely where my like attitude was like magnified at that point. But like I said, I mean, I think I wish more people had that, not to the point where like it doesn't matter what you think, but it doesn't. A lot of things, in my opinion, that people put mental power towards don't really matter. Like if you segment out what you're thinking about and, okay, I'm thinking about this, or this person thinks this about me, like if you realize a lot of that doesn't matter, you have so much more brain power to apply to like amazing other creative endeavors or whatever you want to do with it. It's like kind of clogging.
Totally.
Sure.
It drains you. I love that quote. There's a quote that says, "Your opinion about me is none of my business."
Do you feel like there are any things now in your life where you almost battle with what sucks your energy?
Oh,
in
yeah.
that regard?
Oh, totally.
What are some of those things? Because I know I can sit here and talk about things that, even though in the past I've kind of put it behind me, certain things will creep up on me and start to suck on my energy and pull me back a little bit. And those are things that once you identify them and you can almost say, hey, it's sucking my energy.
Yeah.
You start to get a little stronger every single time.
Like I have people that have helped me, I feel like I will always be indebted to them some way. Family, you guys, your mom, being able to live here. Like, I always feel like there's that debt when I know that's not like how you guys or your mom think at all. I have to remind myself when I help other people, I'm not helping them so they can be indebted to me. And so I need to be like, okay, I was in that position one day, so what I'm feeling in debt to those people, it's not even on their radar that I'm in debt to them. And that's probably the biggest thing that I battle with. That's like always in my mind, like, oh, this person helped me this way, so I need to and of course, I don't know.
I get what you're saying.
It's hard to like verbalize, but.
So let's touch a little bit more about your entrepreneurial adventures. I mean, obviously it started with the landscaping.
Yeah.
What were some other stuff you were dabbling in throughout high school?
High school, not much. A lot.
You sold cocaine, right, for a while?
Don't. No, I never did that.
I'm just kidding. No, you were a DJ, and there might have been some cocaine selling from other people at the parties you DJed.
Maybe, but
Just kidding.
Those are some other vivid memories I have with Cameron Sluggett. We're rolling up to high school parties, and then him just unloading the DJ equipment into the back,
whipping
and
it
then
out.
just biggest parties. Cops come, they get rolled, and then DJ just dips.
Yeah. The after party on my place.
Yeah, Rodine's barn, like all the time.
Totally.
I mean, I landscaped and DJ'd in high school a lot, but that was another thing. I never thought anything of it. I'm very black and white. My dad has speakers. Can play music. Easy.
See, I don't think you realize that from an outsider's perspective because you don't really pay much attention to what people think about you. But I can tell you just from my experience, and I know a lot of other people who were around you at that age, seeing somebody who had their own business, like 2 businesses, landscaping, DJing, especially at that age, that was sick, man. Like, that was so cool. It's like, I remember you were around, you pull out a wad of cash, I'm buying dinner. It's like, kids didn't have money like that at that age. And that's something that is just kind of cool to reflect on, is just how unique that was. And that was cool, man. Like,
and even hearing you say that makes me smile, but in my head, I'm still like, that's just how it was. Like,
sure,
there's no, wow, I don't know. It's like black and white to me, It's like, oh, people want to hire someone that comes to play music. I can do that easy,
What, like, because you did, like, we talked about this a little bit, you ended up dropping out of school your junior year and you finished independent study, right?
Yeah.
So you never considered going to college, getting the 9 to 5, any of that?
No.
Like, at what point did you solidify that? Like, that was not the route you would be going?
I remember talking to you, Soren, and you being like, I'm like, yeah, but if you don't go to college, this is how much money you don't have to spend. And you being like, if you do go to college, this is how much money you'll make. And the graph is kind of like college and this. And that stuck in my head forever. And there's been points in my life, and still today, I'm like, maybe college, maybe not. And I think the whole outlook on not going to college, my point of view was like, so many kids go to college because they're forced to, not necessarily because they want to. If you go to college because you want to, that is totally different. I'm 1,000% for you, but most kids go because that's what they're told.
It's expected of them.
Yeah, and that's what they're told to have a great life and stuff. And there's like I said, many ways to get to the finish line. I don't know what point it actually was like concreted into my mind that.
Well, it was probably when you dropped out of high school.
Well, I mean, but my whole thing is you could always rewind, right?
Yeah,
and go
that's
back.
me too. I agree with you.
So even if you drop out, you could always go back, right? Like nothing.
Should we go back to high school?
Hey, I got my high school diploma. So
we good?
Yeah, it's all good. So
yeah, and I think that's super important that more people realize is that just because I think this is shifting in society, but there still is that demonization almost of people who don't go to college.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you don't go to college, you're going to end up a bum. There's still a lot of that. And I think it's unfortunate that we don't look at the individual, right?
Yeah.
That's just kind of education system in general. You look at people in bulk. It's like everyone should go to college. That's just objectively not true.
Yeah.
Right? It's not for everyone. And you're a prime example of that.
Right.
And
I kind of went down the rabbit hole. I still think it's interesting when you look at a lot of big business people, or not even big business people, and you look at their origins. A lot of them dropped out or didn't finish, or it kind of goes back to like, if you're so passionate about something, it's like you can't not focus on money because you need money to live, but it's almost like the money will follow. If you just head down, I love what I'm doing, I love what I'm building, for people love it, they're paying me for it, there's like a tipping point where you need to solidify that as a big business. But I think a lot of healthy businesses, when they start and you look at the founder, they stumbled into it.
Sure.
Versus like going to find an idea and making that idea work.
I think if we rewind just a little bit, Cameron, you knew when you talked about looking at the DJ stuff black and white, or the landscaping stuff black and white. And what I mean by that is, if you can provide a service, if you could provide value to people and people will pay you, you have figured out how to create value, which in the system that we live in means if you can create value, you can make money. And once you learn how to make money by adding value to other people, and you're confident that you can continue to do that, you always know you can go make money.
Totally.
And so even if you have to pivot into something else, you're able to make money. And that's, I personally believe, and I think you also subscribe to this like ideology, there is a point where you're so confident that you can go add value to other people's lives that you're going to be able to make it work all the time. So you may as well just go out on your own and do your own thing.
And one thing you said really well is, and you've taught me, and I didn't get for a while, but now I totally get it, is like, just focus on the process. Like the process of, I can go offer a service to add value and get paid. But it doesn't matter what you offer the service in, whether you want to mow lawns or play music or create, right? So execute the service part of it,
Sure.
And I think that kind of goes back to like, you wouldn't stumble upon that first. You almost need to do what you love, or go mow lawns or whatever. And then through that, you realize, okay, wait, I'm making money by offering a service to people. Then you're like, wait, why can't I do that and just like swap out the service? It's the same solution. It's the same equation. Just like swap out the service and get a bigger outcome, and just keep doing that, but it's like the same service,
100%.
Or equation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
People are always looking to hire hardworking, trustworthy individuals, and if you can provide them a solution, as a vehicle to solve whatever problem that they need, right? You're gonna always find opportunity, and that's something that we're trying to harp on with the scaling creator concept. Is if you can identify the value that you can add, you're always going to have opportunities.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And that's one thing I've like toyed with, is that because I see things black and white, I don't necessarily see that value. Like when we built this van, I am very like, oh, we need insulation, we need wiring, like we need panels. Oh, you want them fabric wrap? Great, whatever. Like, and I just did it, right? And I'm like, oh, that van looks pretty cool.
You had no idea what this thing was going to look like. You had no idea.
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, I want black hinges and I want the table like this. Okay, that's fine. I can cut that. Easy to do. And then you put up the colored things, and I'm like, that looks sick. and then you bring the art side into it, and I see the content, and I'm like, I built that, because I don't see it like that.
Sure.
And it's so different, you know. And so it's interesting. I don't know where I was going with
No,
that,
I think that's a really good, you know, interpretation of a lot of what you have built over time. Is you have a really solid operating perspective when it comes to building the businesses that you've built. And oftentimes you might not be the one that's like polishing the edges, or you might not be the sales guy out front selling the product to fit every person's different, you know, need, but you're able to actually deliver the bulk of the work. And your skill set has been there. It's kind of a hybrid between like a tech understanding, integration, but also a blue collar work ethic. And I think that's something that you probably, you know, picked up growing up.
Yeah.
And I kind of align with the same.
Oh, we totally have that in common.
do.
That we know that we need to work smarter in today's day and age, but at the same time, we aren't afraid to do 10, 12-hour days, 14, whatever it is, to go get it done, you know. And I think a lot of people don't have that now.
And also, I would imagine that you have a hard time, as do I, delegating tasks or tech-skilled work that you don't quite understand fully yourself.
Yeah.
So you want to get your hands on it first and really understand it before you pass it off to someone else.
Yeah.
No, I've seen that.
That's one thing, like, I'm getting better with, is it better for me to offload this to someone and have them get it done so I can put my resources towards what I'm good at, versus like, I want to figure this out, and it's like an internal battle.
Sure.
And I think there's a personal side where you want to figure it out, but there's also a business side where, like, it doesn't matter who figures it out as long as it gets done.
That's right. And the reality is, you want to hire people who know more than you. That's the secret. You hire people who have more skills than you have, and they start to take what we would consider to be quantum leaps forward in your business, and you're still there driving the ship, and they're teaching you things, and then you could focus on the things that matter most, which is selling the product or service that you have been selling from day one. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really something that we've learned, and something that, I mean, even you're doing that now too. The partners you've probably developed along the way.
Yeah.
Think of all the people you've connected with that have taught you things, whether that's through development or, you know, working with Steven and him creating like automated manufacturing processes and all of that. So I think that's kind of a cool thing to look at and be like, wow, yeah, like even though I didn't know I was doing that, I was doing it.
Yeah. And I was just talking to Toma, who, you know, works with me at the shop, and I was like, all this little stuff we do, I mean, the product is important because you're doing it for the product, but I'm more focused on learning the process, because if we, like, take for instance, if, you know, we don't really want to do custom work, but like, for instance, take the process of designing, manufacturing, and selling and shipping a product. If you get that process down, you can do that with any product.
Sure.
And so I'm like, oh, I'm more interested in like the process of, like, you know, executing that than the actual product. The product is almost a byproduct of learning the process.
That's right. And so when you talk about, you know, your manufacturing warehouse and everything that you're doing now, tell us about Veritas Fans. Talk to us about what you're doing now. I mean, obviously we're sitting in this mobile production van, which is fairly rare among creators. And I know when we first started the process of building this thing, I don't think we weren't really seeing eye to eye on what we were trying to create. I was just like, I know exactly what this van needs to look like. I'm going to drive around. I'm going to podcast with people who have amazing stories. We're going to make content, and we're going to keep fulfilling productions. And we hit you up, I think, a year ago. That was May 2022 and said, hey, you know what? I bought a van and I need help outfitting this thing. So I drove it over to Veritas Vans, and that was the beginning of what really created what we're sitting in now.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Veritas Vans and where you're at now and what you're doing.
Kind of same thing. Like, I had a buddy say, like, hey, I got a job building a van off Facebook. Do you want to come help? And I built a couple vans with friends and said sure. So I helped build that van, and very quickly it grew into, like, I think we got a shop 2 weeks later, and Steven was a great fit. We're good friends with him.
Steven grew up in Oakdale too, right?
Yeah, and he had his other manufacturing business but kind of wanted something else to do. So he's like, that sounds fun. So he kind of figured out the CNC manufacturing side of it.
What does the CNC do?
So the CNC, like, cuts all our cabinets. So we 3D model everything. We in a 3D model of the Mercedes Sprinter van. And then we cut it and manufacture it.
So from what I understand, you work with two different types of customers. You work with people who are trying to build their own vans, and you actually provide them with the do-it-yourself IKEA style cabinets, wall panels, the table we have sitting here, the headliner shelves, all of the pieces that people can go and build their own vans themselves. But then you also have like high-profile custom clients where, like myself, who come in and say, hey, I want this very custom van built, and you do all the electrical, the plumbing, the exterior, all the interior, the finishings, the carpentry on the walls, even the technology that we have in here. I don't know if our listeners have seen our van, but we have enough battery power here to backfeed a 3,500 square foot house for 2 weeks with our solar setup. We have a flat screen TV. We have enough power to power all of our equipment, and we run this whole production studio all from this van that Veritas Vans made. So they know how to build you what I would consider a prepper solution to production in 2023.
How did you learn how to do it all, Cam?
Learn by doing. I mean, it was kind of crazy to think about, but Steven and I the van market, it still is hot, but back then it was super hot, and we just got some contracts, and that was another thing. We weren't really looking for them. We just found these contracts, and we have contracts to build vans. I guess we should figure out how to manufacture cabinets for vans so we don't have to hand build them in the long days. But
I bet, dude.
Yeah.
Did you have your van built out before you started?
Yeah. So I built my van out probably 5-6 years ago, all by hand though. So it looks a lot different than the vans we build. But yeah, I mean, and just hard work and tenacity and a bit of being stubborn and
blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, and there's always a way to do something. There's never a no, I guess.
What would you say you learned from your prior businesses that you've been able to apply to your current one?
I think a big one's just the work ethic and tenacity of we need to get this done. I don't care how long it takes. Let's just grit down and do it, and long days, customer service too. But if you're a semi-decent human, I think customer service comes fairly easily.
Sure.
Don't be a
right. Client's always right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the client's always right.
Even though they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
It's we live in a world that they think that is. So I remember I was on the phone call another day, and this guy was asking about wall panels, and I said, well, to be honest, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, I hope you're honest with me. I'm like, well, of course I am. It's just a figure of speech, but kind of threw him off guard because, I'm not going to feed him what he wants to hear. I'm going to give him my best personal advice, and if he wants it, great. If not, find, someone else.
Cameron has never been a salesperson. He'll tell you how it is instead of how you want to hear it.
Yeah.
He's like,
I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
So talk about a little bit, I mean, we don't have much more time on here, but tell us a little bit about the projects you're working on in terms of, I've seen some of the conversion you guys have done before the conversion you did for Platinum Peak. Obviously, they're fully spec'd in terms of you can go live in these things. We don't have like living accommodations necessarily in ours, but talk about some of the projects that you guys were working on before you guys did Platinum Peaks and then projects that you're working on after.
Yeah, I mean, we built a couple like fully off-grid, 400 watts of solar, AC, heater.
How much solar do we have?
You have 400 or 500 watts, which is more than most vans. But also, all vans we do charge from the alternator, so when the van's running. So a lot of people don't realize that if they're on a road trip, the majority of the day, they're gonna be charging their battery. But I mean, we do water tanks, custom gray water tanks that sit up under the van, hot cold water showers. Yeah, I mean, you could go out in the desert for 2 weeks and turn your Starlink on top, watch Netflix, crank the AC, and not give a and just stay out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's really giving people the opportunity to live that life that you're supposed to be living off the grid.
And we're kind of getting more into cabinetry now. Like I love the van building side, but I love cabinetry as well and what you can do with different cabinetry. And not only do I get the tangible product of a cabinet, but it starts through the like CAD process computer side. So I get to see like all sides of it. We draw it up, Toma and I, and then work on the design and manufacturing, and then we get to cut it and see what we've designed digitally in real life, and so that's kind of cool too in its own way.
It's been really cool watching the business grow, and I think it's really cool that you ended up starting this business, vans, and helping other people achieve their end goal, which most of the time is using this product to get off the grid more, to travel more. And it's always been cool to me that you ended up in this business because you yourself have lived a pretty nomadic lifestyle.
Yeah.
You've done some really cool things. You've done some traveling. Let's go into some of your adventures, like where you've lived and how that also broadened your horizon.
Yeah. And that's like quick overview of it. That's another thing I've never looked at, that I've lived this amazing traveling nomadic lifestyle. It was just like, I want to go to Maui. We're going to Maui. I want to go to Nicaragua. I'm going to Nicaragua. And it all kind of falls into place if you do it. But yeah, like I've been really fortunate enough and lucky to live in Tahoe and Maui and Nicaragua and here at the ranch and
Slow. I mean, Santa Cruz from time to time.
Santa Cruz. I mean, just lots of different cool places, and I never set out. It was never a goal to do that. It just like you find yourself there. A buddy that was like, Nicaragua, Marty was walking down the dock, and a guy was sailing his boat to Nicaragua, leaving the next day. So he hopped on a whim, sailed to Nicaragua, and said, "You should come down here, Cam. It's pretty cool." I went down. And
how long did you live down there for?
So first time, like 3 weeks. Second time, which isn't really living, but it's easier to say. Second time, like 3 months. So,
okay. For some reason, I thought it was longer.
No,
you were in Hawaii for...
Yeah, a couple times. But I set up the Wi-Fi business.
Right, yeah, you had the Wi-Fi business.
So, like, I was actually working, and that was, like, a whole experience in itself. Like, the language barrier, trying to be like, hey, I want to put a Wi-Fi antenna on your roof, and just, like, that was such... But down there, there's, like, no red tape, so you just go do it, and so...
It's wild.
Yeah.
It really is.
What would you say you learned from living in these different places, from your travels, especially Nicaragua? Like, what did you expect of it? And then when you got there, how did your perspective change?
I had no real expectations except that, we come from a pretty in a box place, I would say. So it's like, oh, you're going to Nicaragua. I saw that on the travel advisory.
Right. Don't go. Yeah.
Okay. Would you walk downtown San Francisco at 2 a.m. with your purse out? No.
Go down San Francisco at 12 at noon these days.
Exactly. So people don't it's very tunnel viewed, but being there, it's just for the most part, live how you would live here. Don't go out at night or late night in a big city, but people are awesome, super loving. It was rad. I liked it. And then, I did some traveling to Belize while I was down there. Same thing, super cool. And when I've lived in Maui, same thing. Like if you're respectful of the people and the culture, this is totally cliche, but if you are, there's this unsaid, people know that and can feel that and realize you aren't there to stir up, right?
Yeah, they're very protective of their culture there in Hawaii.
Totally. Yeah. And even here, I think everyone's protective of their own thing, which is understandable, but if you come to me and you're like, hey, I'm respectful and blah blah blah, why would I hold something back? And that's kind of how Nicaragua, Belize, Hawaii, even locals in Tahoe, that's how they are. If you're not coming, if you're just down to earth and a human, typically people are really receptive.
Do you feel like traveling and getting outside the box, getting outside the norm, exposing yourself to different experiences, do you think that is essential for growth?
I think so, yeah. Even you guys just spent 3-4 weeks in the Philippines, and you were just like, wow, it wasn't what we thought. And I think a lot of people buy into what they think and are scared to do whatever. Could be traveling, could be business endeavor, but then they actually go do that thing and it wasn't that bad,
Yeah.
Really, nothing's that bad. It's life. You're supposed to have fun and enjoy it. So
that's how you look at it, and your attitude towards it, what you can take away with it.
For sure, yeah, totally.
Well, before we wrap up, I do want to touch a little bit more on Veritas vans because we're here in the production van. It's a huge piece of what we're doing here. And I know when you guys first started Veritas vans, you guys were doing custom builds, right? Mm-hmm. So everything you guys were doing, clients would come to you, they would say, hey, I want a van, or they would bring you an empty van and you guys would convert that van into something that met their vision. But from my understanding, you guys have transitioned into more of a productized business model. And what I mean by that is you guys are actually providing the do-it-yourself creators the necessary tools and resources to build their own vans themselves. And even one of our friends, Owen, he actually took one of your guys' cabinet kits. I'm pretty sure he took one of the sink galley kits. Yep. He actually added that himself to his van. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about where you guys started in terms of developing custom vans for people, but then how you guys saw the opportunity to transition to the do-it-yourself productization model, because I think our listeners would really appreciate understanding how you saw an opportunity while you were building people custom vans to just sell what they would say you sold the picks and shovels during the gold rush. Yeah. You guys saw the opportunity during the van rush, as we'll call it, and you guys capitalized on it. So tell us a little bit about that before we wrap up. Yeah, so we were building internal vans for people, and, we had this cabinetry and uppers, and I said to Steve-O, hey, let's throw these on Etsy. Doesn't hurt us. We have the designs, we can cut them and put them on Etsy and to help. Because I kind of saw the market that, okay, we can only build X amount of vans, but there's, how many people building their own vans out there, right? And we can service them with a lot less people internally than having to build a team to build vans. So a couple guys can run a CNC and cut and pack cabinets
versus, it takes a whole team to build a van, plumbing, just everything.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys actually cut out every piece that's necessary for a cabinet or for the interior fixings of a van or the wall panels.
Yep.
And you guys will package that and then send that to people who are building their own vans?
Yep. So we design everything in the 3D model, cut it on the CNC, and then we flat pack the uppers, the panels. We ship the galleys assembled on an LTL on a pallet, garage cabinets, bed panels, and that
pretty much everything you need to build a van.
And that all just came internally, like, hey, we're doing this internally, let's throw it online and see who else wants it. And a lot of other people want it. So
that's really cool.
And then kind of naturally migrated into like, okay, we'll still build vans, but let's kind of explore this e-commerce side of it.
So it's giving you guys the opportunity to scale internally without having to double or triple down on your guys' manpower.
Totally, because at the end of the day, if you need to cut more cabinets, you buy another CNC. One time, fixed cost. Maybe you get another person to run that one, but typically one guy can run them both. Versus like, okay, I want to build more vans. We need to hire more people. Oh, I want to cut more cabinets. Buy another CNC. Which is not an ongoing cost. It's a one-time, buy the CNC and cut. So
that's really neat. Definitely shows your guys' scaling journey in terms of setting out for one thing and then finding an opportunity to service another market. And it really does tie back to what we were talking about earlier, when you realize that when you're providing value, say in one market, you can see yourself providing value to some people in another market.
More value in the other market. And you would have never found that other market if you didn't start out in this market.
Sure.
And that's like what we were saying, that like we would have never stumbled upon van cabinetry if we weren't building vans, right?
Sure.
But because you're building vans, you stumble into cabinetry, and then the building vans kind of, fizzles, and then you scale up the cabinetry. But you would have never Googled, hey, I'm just going to build van cabinetry without building a van.
Sure. You wouldn't even know where to put it,
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting progression for sure.
Very cool. So where can people find you online? I know you have Veritas fans on Instagram.
Yep.
Talk to us here about where people can find you, websites, social media handles.
Yeah. VeritasFans.com is like our website. You can buy all our cabinetry. Reach out to us if you have questions. Call the number right there. I'll pick up. If I don't, I'm in the shop. I'll call you back. Leave a voicemail. Facebook and Instagram, we have content on there, but it's best through our website. Our cabinets are on Etsy as well. And come by the shop and geek out about, cabinets. And I love to see people's van builds. They're so different. People are so creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, stuff I could never think of. That's also one reason I love the DIY market, because people will put our products where I didn't envision them, but I'm like, oh, that's very clever, and so I don't know, it's cool.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Cameron, for being on today. We really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming. We've gone through a lot, everything from meeting at the high school basketball game to building a zip line to going on the Dirty Toes news tour, where we were featured on.
We need to have a part 2 to talk about that.
Well, we'll have a part 2 talking about that too. But yeah, we went on a news tour, and you can hear about it in the next episode. We went on a news tour. We did our own PR, and we went on a news tour when we released the Dirty Toes documentary, and I think we hit 4 different news stations or 4 different news appearances.
Yeah,
Eriksen and Cameron were both on it.
That was great.
And
that's fun.
With the ponytail when it had long hair.
It was pure swag.
Cam used to have hair down to like his butt cheeks.
Dirty Toes was so fun. That was another thing I just didn't, you guys saw the creative side in it, and I was just like, oh, they're filming me. Cool.
I had no idea. Like when you watch the final version, the 50-minute documentary, however long it is, I remember you're saying like, you're just like, oh my gosh, I thought it'd be just like a little like 5-minute you had no idea what to expect.
Let's go watch Dirty Toes.
All right.
And then, what we'll do is we'll set ourselves up for another episode here at the Scaling Creator Podcast.
Perfect.
And we look forward to having another episode.
Yeah.
In terms of what we're going to be talking about, I can already be thinking about that. I know, Eriksen, you got some ideas going on. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. Cameron, Eriksen, here in the production van.
In the van.
And we'll see you guys on the next episode of Scaling Creator.
All right.
Thank you.
Peace.
See ya.